Thank you everyone for joining us. Symmetry version 9.3 is a new release. It is available today. It was uploaded to our partner portal last week, so this is fully available today. For some of you who may have been paying attention, you may have noticed that our last full release was 9.1. And we sort of skipped over 9.2. There was a 9.2 available. It was a interim release, but it was not made commercially available. So it was on a customer by customer basis where we supplied that. But those features have primarily been rolled into 9.3. So we have a lot of new stuff to show you here. A lot of stuff that we're excited to have for you. The features can be the main highlights of the features that we're adding can be broken down into reporting enhancements, video enhancements, some additional features for M4000, as well as some additional alarm management features that we've added to the system. I know we've got a broad range of people attending this webinar, so I'll be going over the highlights. I will be delving a little bit into some of the configuration aspects so that technicians and people who need to set this up can have an idea. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but just enough to give you an idea of the type of things you'll need to do in order to set up some of these features. So for those of you who have an older release and are upgrading to 9.3, one thing that you may need to do is for some of these enhancements, you may need to go to your roles to configure some of them to be available. So if installed new, the features are typically available as part of the installer role. But if it's part of an upgrade, you may need to remember to add the permission to the role before you can use some of these features. So if you've done an upgrade and you don't see any of these features, remember to go into the roles and make sure you have permissions to them. So the roles is under the maintenance role screen. If I go to the installer permission here, so here's where I can come in and assign roles. For those who are familiar with this screen, you may notice that it looks a little bit different than previously. We've taken the options section and added it here as a single bar to the right. So for example, if I go into monitoring and alarms, there are several different options here that used to be part of this tree down here, but now by separating in this window, it allows you to set up your system quicker. I can assign permissions, what level of permissions to alarm screen, and do options all in one screen rather than jumping from one to another area of the tray. So in the area of reporting, we've added a lot here. So one of the things that we've added is if we go into predefined reports, in terms of how we could assign permissions previously, we used to be able to assign what level of permissions you have to the window, so whether it be view or modify or delete permissions to items such as predefined reports. But the individual reports themselves were either you have them or you don't. In version 9.3, now we can go in and we can assign on a role base who can and cannot see an individual report. So for example, if a user using the installer role does not need to see this cardholder on-site predefined report, well, I can uncheck that and now remove that ability to see that report from them. If we go into the predefined reports, so under reports and predefined reports here, you may also notice that this screen looks a little bit different as well. What we've done is now we can see what reports are scheduled on a screen here as well. The other thing, and this is a pretty big enhancement, is now we can run advanced reports within the screen. So back in version 8.02, we introduced a advanced reporting module. It's a free add-on that you can apply on your system, but it essentially allows you to build reports using basically a report generator that has a full data dictionary that allows you to build the reports. But it's always been a separate application you need to run in order to do those reports. With version 9.3, many of those reports we can now run right within the Symmetry interface. So if I open up my advanced reporting tool here, I can show you an example here. So if I go into the report libraries, so here's where I can come and build a report, again, through a report generator. So I'm not going to go into the process for building the report because that's been around for a while. We can also build reports for you at no cost, but I'll kind of go into the process of adding this report into the Symmetry 9.3 system. So if I have a report that I want to show in Symmetry, I've pre-created one called Advanced Report in SMS. So here's a report that I want to be able to run from the Symmetry GUI. If I go to the report, I can go to export this report, and I want to export it to the Symmetry repository. What this is the Advanced Reporting utility is a utility that runs on the client and is configured there. The repository basically allows me to create a report that would ordinarily be available just to me on my machine and then share it with anyone else by sending it to a central database. So essentially by choosing the Symmetry repository and proceed, I'm now taking this report and now it's been pushed up to the database. So I've built my own report and now it's available to anyone else running Symmetry Advanced Reporting, or now I can also push it into the Symmetry system. So when I push into the Symmetry system, the other thing I need to remember to do is go and assign it to the role so it becomes available for me as a user to see. So if I go into the installer and go into reports and the predefined reports, you see here's that advanced report in SMS. Because I pushed it to the database, now it's available and I can choose it and click OK. And now I've essentially added it to my permission level so that I can see it. Going back into the predefined reports, here is now my Symmetry Advanced Report in SMS. I can click to add it, and now I have the ability to run the report from here. So if I go and open it, let's say I want to run it immediately, send it to the screen. And now it generates that advanced report that I built, and I can see it within Symmetry. So in addition to running advanced reports through Symmetry, some additional reporting features that we've added are now the ability to email an advanced report. Email a predefined report. So we've always had the ability to email reports. We've had that for a long time, but that is a report that essentially I run the report now and then I choose to send it to an email. What we haven't had until now is the ability to schedule an email. So the predefined reports is what we use for report scheduling. So if I go and enable the schedule, I choose essentially when the first day I run the report, choose runtime, end time. And then choose the number of days to include, things like that. And then I can choose to run it to an email, choose the email that I'm sending it to, the output format, and click OK. And now essentially it is the report is now scheduled to run. So here is just the email notification message. That's because I chose to send it. I forgot to uncheck to send it immediately, so I can send it immediately now as well. But because I've also scheduled the report, it will now run on that schedule. So I'll just click the immediate report and click fine. And now I can see that that advanced report is set to be scheduled. The other enhancement that this brings is now because advanced reports can now be run through this utility. We used to be able to only schedule the reporting of history events. So things like activity, user audits, and things like that. But if you wanted a weekly report that shows just your card holders or just your access rights, that needed to be run manually. Now, because we can schedule any advanced reports, we can build those reports in the advanced report section and then have them running. Now, one consideration when it comes to this is when we're running an advanced report, we can only run the report if there is no interface to the report. Meaning, if I need to enter a filter such as a time date range or enter a cardholder name or things like that, then I can't run that report through the Symmetry GUI. I would need to run it in the advanced report utility. But as long as we can build a report that has no user interface, then I can run it through the predefined report section. Now moving on to some of the video enhancements we've added with 9.3. We used to have, and it is we still have for upgrades and existing customers, but we don't really push very much, is our old Symmetry native video. So we used to be able to use the Symmetry SMS as a NVR. That was prior to us partnering with Salient and releasing our Symmetry Complete View. Now, most of the features of that we get when we integrate with the Complete View are available within the Symmetry GUI. But one of the things that we have not had is within the Symmetry GUI we had the video status report. So historically speaking, this was used just for the native Symmetry NVR, so the legacy product. What we've built in with 9.3 is now we can, through the video status, see the video status of a Symmetry Complete View recorder as well. So I can see the status of the recorder, I can see which ones are online, offline, get notes on them, as well as the status of cameras, see that they're recording. So now I'm getting a lot of data within the Symmetry GUI of the Symmetry Complete View NVR, not just the native NVR that we used to support. So if I can show you, if I move on to another system here, I will minimize the screen here. So here I can show you another NVR to show you what it looks like when it's not connected. So on the previous system I showed you one where all the NVRs are up. Well, now I'm seeing one where NVRs are offline. So as you can see, I now have a problem status. And I can see information on that NVR being down. So again, provides some very useful information on the NVR status. The other thing that we have introduced in the new version of Symmetry is the ability to associate cameras with devices. So a little bit of background, we've always been able to tag video based on an event, but it was always an event-based tagging. So we would go into, for example, a trigger command and say, if I have a door forced, then bookmark, bookmark a certain camera. What we've done in 9.3 is we've now set up what we call camera associations and camera views. So camera associations allow us not to, instead of having to go and write a separate trigger for each event, I can now just go select a device. So let's say I take a device type of a reader. I can choose the reader, and then I get my list of cameras, so I can choose the associated cameras. So in this case, what cameras do I want to associate with this monitor front, this Montreal front door? Well, let me type MON to fill. I don't have any Montreal devices, but let's say this Tampa device here. I can click to drag these cameras from here to the associated camera list, and now these are associated with that camera by device. So instead of doing it at the event level where I need to do it with every event, I'm now associating the actual device with the camera. So what does that do for us? Well, if I go, once cameras have been associated, essentially we are now getting access to the data, whether it be in the activity screen, the alarm screen, and the graphics screen. So if I go and simulate, for example, a device that has been configured, so here, let me freeze the screen so we look a little bit cleaner. So in this case, I've got a monitor point and alarm that's now been associated with some cameras. There's a new icon that's available for when a camera is associated through the camera associations. So it looks a little bit different. The previous icon that you may have seen before would be a green icon that is still supported in the event of video having been tagged, but now having had the camera associated with it, I can choose to bring up live or playback video based on that event. So if I, for example, let's open up the virtual matrix here. If I want to get to the live video associated with that device, I click Associated Live Video, and it will populate the tile with the live video that corresponds to the camera that was associated. If I want to get to recorded video, I can right-click and go to Associated Playback Video, which now brings up our the recorded video of that incident. So I can see here's where the incident happened, and I get my associated video there. Now, if anyone has used our control desk application, which is a utility that allows us to logically link devices by location, it had a similar camera associations that was set up in a similar way. In 9.3, this pushes to control desk. So if you have a control desk setup, you can configure that now within Symmetry to associate the cameras. You don't need to do it separately. If I bring up the alarm screen, here's where I can see that new icon compared to the old icon. So the old icon only gave us what we call video playback. The new icon now gives us the associated live and associated playback video. And this is an event that also has the tagged video, so I can also see the old instant replay, which does essentially the same thing as the associated video playback. The difference is they don't necessarily need to have the same pre and post time. So the instant replay may, for example, have a 10-second pre-alarm time, where the associated video may have a different, such as 5. The other thing that we get from this is if I go to our graphics screen, make it a little bigger for you. So here's the device that caused the alarm. Well, because I have the associated video, I can get to the associated live and playback video from this screen as well. Now, the slight difference between when I do that in the graphics screen versus when I do that in the alarm or event screen is if I do playback video from the alarm or event screen, it's going to pull back the event associated specifically with the video that's associated specifically with the event. So if it was yesterday's video, it'll bring up yesterday. Now, in this case, if I do it from the graphics screen, I'm no longer pulling it from an event, so it's going to bring up video that was associated just essentially the last few seconds of the video. So it'll be almost live video. The other thing that we have brought to the new version of Symmetry is what we call camera views. So if I go into camera views, it is essentially, think of it like I can predefine a particular view. And the reason we say view instead of preset is because this view may be a PTZ camera that has a preset, or it may also be a multi-imager view that has a specific view type. So maybe, for example, I'm going to view a panoramic camera as a fisheye view versus a de-warped view or things like that. So we have those options available through to save that as a view, and then they become something that I can use in the system based on an event.
Greg, just a quick interruption, just reminding folks following to please, as questions come up, thoughts on 9.3 details, please post them in the Q&A section. Sorry for the interruption.
Yep. No problem. The other video enhancement that we have brought to the product is the ability to expand cell on double click. Now, this is a setting based on client preferences. So that means I can have one workstation operate this way versus one operate the other. So if I enable that here, then what that means is now when I go to the workstation, if I'm in a matrix view, and let's say I have a camera located on a specific tile, it gives me the ability to double click on that camera to expand the video. So I can double click to expand and then double click to shrink the video. So it gives me the option to do that. Moving on to some of the M4000 enhancements. So for those of you not familiar with our M4000, that is our next generation panel that we've introduced over the past year. Now, a little bit of a background, although it's a next generation panel, we're not expecting to end of life our M20 and 50 panels anytime soon. We've got a lot of life left in those panels. and the M4000 is a panel that is, because it's a brand new, we didn't release it with in its final form. So in terms of features that are available for the M4000, many of those are being implemented as we go along. So, you know, typically we're not pushing to go right to the M4000 unless you have a feature that it supports that we know that it it meets. Otherwise, we would need to essentially vet it to make sure it's the appropriate panel for you, make sure it has the features that you need. An example of why we would do that is up until 9.3, the M4000 didn't have the ability to support custom card formats. So it had several card formats, such as, you know, and by card format, I mean, for example, a 26-bit format, 35-bit corporate 1000. You know, for example, we had a few that were predefined, but you may have some, you know, different type of card format that wasn't available. So with 9.3, we have now built the ability to then define a custom card format. So without getting too much into the configuration, we now have the default settings, card formats. Now this one is used exclusively for the M4000 as opposed to the reader card formats, which is what we use on our M2150 line of panels. But this gives us the ability to now customize exactly what formats we're providing. So if you have some unique card format that's not a common one, we can come in here and essentially define whatever that format is and then have it available to be pushed to the M4000 panel. We have also added additional features such as intrusion status, recognizing an IP address update of the M4000, synchronizing node descriptions, and what we mean by that is the M4000 is configured at the panel pushing back into Symmetry as opposed to the other way around. Well, now we're synchronizing basically how the node defines its description. And as well as several performance enhancements, transaction handling, and things like that. And then finally moving on to some of the alarm handling enhancements that we've made. So if I come to, for example, the alarm instruction screen. So what the alarm instructions are is when I'm monitoring an alarm and I open up a particular alarm, I can have a list of instructions of what essentially telling the operator how to handle that instruction, basically how to handle the alarm. Up to 5 instructions we support. What we've done is we've now added the ability to configure these instructions with a lot more detailed format. So previously it was just regular text. It appears the same text either way. What we have now done is if I go into the alarm instructions, let's say I open up, actually let me look at I have another configuration. It's probably easier to show what I mean by this. If I go to operation, alarm instructions, and say, for example, panic button instruction, well, now it's not just regular plain black text of the same, font and same format. I can go and configure different fonts, different size text. I can highlight it. I can change colors. I can make it different sizes. I can install a picture or a hyperlink. So there's a lot more I can now do as part of this instruction. So in this case, I've made sure to say, when this instruction comes up, it says dispatch, and I put guard in red to make it stand out. Dispatch guard to the highlighted room, so you can see in the picture, here's what the highlighted room is, and then telling the operator to log on to the Symmetry event management. So if I go to an alarm that is associated with that event, so here's that panic button alarm to show you what it looks like. Well, now I have the instruction that displays it with a lot more flexibility in terms of how we display it. So now we're saying dispatch that guard to the highlighted room. I also added an instruction that has a hyperlink. So in this case, dispatch guard to the highlighted room being here. And also log on to Symmetry event and case management, what we used to know as RISC 360, and I added a hyperlink there. So I can click on the hyperlink and now bring myself to that, to that website. So instead of browsing to it, automatically launch, the hyperlink as needed. And the other feature that we've added in terms of alarm management is the comments that we can add now support 2,500 characters. So we used to be limited in terms of how many characters we have. Well, now we have a lot more room for how big the comments can be when we add comments to the alarm. Additionally, what we have now also done is we now support some newer operating systems. So we now support Windows 2019 as well as SQL 2019. So we have additional enhancement, so additional support there, and as well as several other minor fixes and additions, such as the ability to prevent duplicate card encoding. So what that means is if I go to maintenance, system preferences, I can now go to card settings and says, when I choose the prevent duplicate card encoding, what that does is if we're using Symmetry to encode card numbers, it's going to prevent the operator from having the ability to encode the card twice. So I know when I'm encoding it, it will not let me re-encode it unless I change the issue number so that we don't have duplicate cards out there. With that, I think I've covered most of the major highlights of 9.3. There are additional, features that come with it as well, but those are the main highlights. With the software comes the release notes. So if I show you those here. So with it comes a release note, so it kind of gives you more of a full, thorough look at all the various features, support changes, things like that. So you can take a look at this and see additional enhancements here and there. We have a new version, for example, of Symmetry Web that's available, with the software, and again, a ton of different little issues addressed and fixed. So it gives you a more full, comprehensive look at even the kind of minor changes that we've had. So with that, we will leave it up to questions.
Great job, Greg. Thank you. I have a question. Where's the easiest place for one of our reseller installers or technicians to track down this document?
Good question. So it's available with the software. So even if you're not installing, you can download the software and then access the document. So if you download the software installation files, there's a documentation folder with it. If you have installed the software, all of our major manuals for software get installed with it in the program files, x86 security management system folder. There's a subfolder called documentation that has that. If you don't, if you need it quickly and don't have the ability to download all of that, you can always reach out to application engineering. So application engineer at amag.com. We can get you any of the documents that we have.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you. So we've got a couple questions so far, Greg. So I'll put these out and we'll kind of plug through. Looks like we've got three at this point. Let me just make sure that I'm correct on that. Yeah. So the first question is, as an integrator, I have the training version of 9.0. Can I use the same license number for version 9.3?
That is a good question. I believe that is the case. The only reason I'm not sure is because of the demo. I don't know if the demo works a little bit differently. Demo licenses tend to get locked down, so you can't make changes on them. That being said, any production or test license for 9.0 or 9.1 will also work on 9.3. So generally if you have a 9.0 license and you're using the 9.3 installer, the license generally works. So I would expect that to be the case with the demo license that we have as well. I've never personally tested it out myself.
Second question, another good one. How will the update from 9.1 to 9.3 be? Will it require a new license, or can we just run 9.3 installer to consume the 9.1 licenses?
Yeah, you can run the 9.3 installer, and it will use the existing 9.0 licenses. And you can, starting with 9.0, we can install on top in most cases. There are certain cases where that would not be the case, such as if you have NEC Express cluster that usually involves our pro services doing it, or if it's a very large or complex system, as well as there are certain considerations that are identified in the document in terms of what are the supported upgrades. So if you have a service pack, or so if you have a build or patch on, for example, 8.1 that's newer than a certain release, same thing, if you have some of those, then you may need to wait till the next release. But generally, it'll be installed on top of it and then reuse the license that you already have.
Perfect. And then the third question is, we are told there was an issue with SR series in version 9. We were told that this has been resolved in 9.3. Can you add more information to that, like what was the issue and what was fixed? If you're not up to speed on that specifically, Greg, I'm happy to dig into it and then post a response once I've got the details.
Yeah, I am not familiar with it. I just searched the document here to see if there's any reference to it, and they had only a couple of SR references, but they didn't seem to be. They were just under when things were added, so I don't have that information.
Okay, so Keith, I see that message, and I will get you some details on that. You're welcome. Look at that. Any other questions out there? All right. Well, perfect, Greg. Thank you. Great job. Very informative. I will tell you that I learned some things today, so I thank you for that. Particularly most notably the reporting component, and then being able to pull in the advanced reporting, I think is fantastic. Thank you.